I'm a 40-something-year-old corporate girly that would like to retire in 8 years, but I have no retirement savings. I'm also $100,000 in debt. $85,000 of that is student loans, and $14,000 is in credit cards that I like to pay off by the end of 2024, but I don't know how to do that because I don't make enough money. The long-awaited student loan debt crisis video. I've had several comments over the last, I don't know, a couple months of me doing these like budgeting and like, I guess you can say like budgeting videos. I don't know. And I get comments all the time about how did I get an $85,000 worth of credit card or worth of student loan debt. And so I am here to share my story time. Also, forgive me, I am catching a cold, so I may have to bring out my snot rag. Trying not to. I'm going to share a story time about how I got in this much debt, but I also took the liberty of kind of breaking down all the numbers. So we'll go over that, and I will tell you how student loans are a scam. And the student loan companies, debt holders, whatever you want to call them, are trifling. I will preface this story with saying that my parents didn't teach me anything about financial literacy, and I'm not blaming my parents for my debt. But I think if they would have taught me about scammy loans, how loans could be so predatory, taught me anything about interest rates, or at least pointed me in the right direction, because we did have the internet by the time I was like sometime in high school, and we still had Britannica in the library. So I don't know why they never taught me about interest rates or loans or debt or anything. I wish they had given me some sort of a foundation, so that way I would have a little bit more like wherewithal and not be so naive when I left the house. But I am in no way like blaming my parents for my debt, but I just wish that I had a solid foundation to have some kind of like internal like compass, I guess you can say. This all started back in 2007 when I saw University of Phoenix being like promoting all the commercials. We had the internet by then, so all of the things online and TV and stuff like that I was seeing. And I was very still naive. I was in my early 20s. I was already a stay-at-home mom to 2 kids. With a military husband, so he was always on some kind of deployment or some kind of work something. I couldn't just, I mean, I guess I could have gotten like a babysitter and stuff like that, but I don't know. I also just didn't leave my parents' house with like much confidence about myself. Like my parents never really instilled in me and my sisters to be confident and to pick the right person to marry and all of those things. Like I'm not blaming my parents, but I'm trying to tell you and level set that my parents gave me no foundation to go out into this world, and I've had to learn everything on my own. And I wish that they had given me, you know, how to be confident and how to overcome things and just like the normal talks that I feel like parents should have with their kids. And I had nothing, so I went out into the world very naive, very like not confident of who I was, no kind of like internal compass to be like, maybe getting married and having a baby at 19 isn't the best idea, because you probably don't know who you are, and you could go and like see the world and go to school and whatever it is that you want to do. They never really instilled any of that in us. So when I saw all the commercials for University of Phoenix and how like it was so great and they were going to give us like jobs, and they were really promoting how they were going to get people jobs to some degree. I don't know if that was like getting an actual job or getting an interview, because this was 2007 and now we're in 2024. So don't remember everything, but I do remember the advertisements about getting people jobs, and I was like, oh my god, that is so amazing. Like, clearly I want a job if I'm going to go to school. And being a stay-at-home mom with a military husband, I was like, perfect, this is right up my alley. Didn't raise any alarms that this could be somewhat scammy or anything like that because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm not working in the world, and I really haven't since I worked at Sonic as a teenager. So I never had any kind of corporate experience to realize like, are people going to hire you with an online degree? And no kind of thought process into this. I will say I had no thought process into this. I just thought I wanted a degree, and I eventually wanted to start working once both of my girls started school, which our youngest was about 2007. She was about 3 years old when I started. And then by the time I was ending in 2010, we were getting a divorce. But we'll get to there in the story. I'm jumping a little bit ahead. I don't even realize back then that Pell Grants are something you have to pay back. I thought Pell Grants were free money. That's how naive and dumb I was. I'm recognizing how stupid I was and how naive I was, and how I also didn't use the internet in its infancy until 2007 to like research it all. Didn't really, none of my family chimed in and said, this doesn't sound right, nothing. All systems were a go. Even my husband at the time thought it was a great idea and everything like that. And he was like, yes, you're gonna go get your degree. That's great for you. Like, he was cheering me on. He never once was like, this seems expensive and this seems scammy. One, he had never been to college either, so that's probably why. But he had been out in the working world in the military for, I don't know, 8 years or 5 years or something like that by that time. I don't know. He went into the military young at 17. So maybe he was in for a few years by that time. But I was in my early 20s by this time. So maybe he was in by about 5 or 6 years at that point. And I always wanted a degree in accounting. I knew that from the jump, like even in high school, because I was good at math. I liked math. I didn't know what I wanted to do with a degree in accounting. I just know that I wanted a degree in accounting, and I thought that's the way to go because I like math, and I always kind of thought like you should pursue something that you like and you enjoy, because we all have to work in this world to make a living, and why make it that much harder on myself going to a job I hate? So that was my thought process behind getting the accounting degree. And I started at University of Phoenix's junior college, which is Axia College. I don't know if they still call it that because this is almost 20 years ago now. So I started that, and I completed or graduated, whatever you want to say, in the 2 years. And then they basically kept trying to tell me something to the degree like if I were to complete the other 2 years to get my 4-year degree from University of Phoenix, then that's when they would like chime in and get me the job that I always wanted, or hook me up with companies that I would be able to interview with or something like that. They kept trying to like push the fact that I needed to go and get these other 2 years so I can graduate from University of Phoenix and not just the junior college. So I'm like, I mean, what do I know? This sounds great. Like, I was able to do the other years and be a stay-at-home mom. Half of that time that I was in school for the 4 years, my husband at the time was deployed for a full year out of that, for 4 years. And he was gone on like a couple of like missions that were like a few weeks long here and there. So some of that time I was literally like solo parenting, like almost like a single parent, but I didn't make any money. I was usually using money and not making any. So it kind of worked out really good to do the online school is what I was thinking. Still no thoughts about like, will this work in the world? Will I be able to get a job in the online school when no one's doing online schools? Nowadays, there is someone very high up in my company that I work at, and he went to University of Phoenix, but he is also like retired military, so he might have done that like when he was in college or like when he was in the military, and kind of just worked for him to do like night classes, weekend kind of things, and now it's like kind of acceptable. And I think it might actually be his master's program, and he has an undergrad at a regular school. Back on track because I have a tendency to go like sidetrack, sorry. So I do all my 4 years get them all done. During that time, towards the end, is when my marriage was falling apart. And then I subsequently needed to try to use this degree. During that last year or so of my marriage, I ended up getting my real estate license. So I practiced real estate for a little bit. Then we got divorced, or we got separated, and I was like depressed. If you can look up the definition of depressed in 2009, you would see my face. In my house robe. I was doing all I could to keep it together, to get my kids on the school bus and hang out with my youngest one who wasn't in school quite yet. And I was so depressed. Crying all the time. Terrible. Eventually, I needed to move out of our home because obviously we were getting a divorce and I couldn't afford to keep it. And I moved back to North Carolina from Kentucky. We were stationed at, is that Fort Campbell in Kentucky right there? My ex-husband's in the Army. So I think it's Fort Campbell. And I moved back to North Carolina and I was able to do property management for a few years. Bounced around to a couple of companies doing that. And then I realized, like, I'm not making that much money. I was making like $15 an hour, which 2010 was, I guess, pretty decent. 2024 would not pay my bills, especially as a single mom. During that time, our daughters lived with me still. And so I was supporting them. I did get child support, but still I wanted to make a living for myself. You know, I wanted something that I could call my own and something that I was really proud of. And something I could, like, show my daughters, like, they could look up to me and stuff like that. You know, like, look at mom. She came from, like, nothing and went through this horrible divorce. And look at her. She's doing amazing. That's what I always wanted. And I thought, like, I could make so much more money. So during this time of me, like, thinking I could make so much money, still working at this property management job, being a leasing agent, I applied for a lot of different banking, accounting kind of jobs. Not really, I don't know if I applied for like a bank teller because they didn't make any more money than I was making and I needed to make more money. That would be the whole reason to leave. I was in a city where I knew no one, didn't have any family. My ex-husband lived about an hour away, so didn't have any help with the girls or anything. I was literally out there doing it on my own, learning as I went every single day. Went through a lot of job applications at that time. Eventually, I got so many turn downs from jobs. Eventually, one of the last turn downs I got was like via phone call, which would probably never happen in 2024. They just ghost you or email you. Like some kind of AI predetermined text or something. But I got a phone call and I asked her, like, what do you think about my University of Phoenix degree? Like, does it mean anything? Like, is that why I'm getting turned down? Something. I remember asking her about what she thought about my University of Phoenix degree. She said, means nothing. It's means absolutely nothing. And it's almost as if you never went to college. And I was so butthurt over that because I literally was in so much debt being a new single mom, trying to figure it out. I don't have any single moms in my family. Like, my parents are still married. And I am one of 3 sisters, and I am the only one that has kids. So I literally had no single moms to kind of look up to as like some kind of guide of how to guide myself through this time of being a single mom and working and trying to figure it all out, coming from being a stay-at-home mom, traditional wife. It was at this time that I got so many rejections. The girl told me my University of Phoenix degree meant absolutely nothing, that I was like, okay, I've got to figure out how to go back to a regular school, like a brick and mortar regular school. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina at the time, and I kind of thought, like, maybe I can take night classes at, like, Wake Tech. Like, do I even need to go to Wake Tech? Because I have, like, 4 years of school. Will they accept any of this? And do I need to just go to like UNC Raleigh or whatever the school is in Raleigh, the university. I went through somewhat of the enrollment process at Wake Tech. I do remember that and sitting with the counselor. I don't remember too much. I remember looking over like the course schedule and like prices and was like, how am I going to do this? I have absolutely no help with my kids. Like, are they just going to have to be at home by themselves in the evening? They're literally like in elementary school. Like, I'm talking about first grade and like third grade or something at this point. And I was like, I just don't feel like that's right. So I was like, okay, I can't do this. I ended up saying, okay, I'm just gonna move back in with my parents. They're gonna help me out. They've always been there for me. They never said that I couldn't move back home. I'm sure they were empty nesters at this point for a few years. I'm sure they were kind of like, they didn't want us to move back home, but they were so gracious to let me and my daughters move back in with them. And they really didn't charge me much. I think I paid like the electric bill, and that was really it, and helped buy groceries. By that time I was like on food stamps because I wasn't working. And I enrolled at WCU, and thankfully they took 2 years worth of credits from my 4 years at University of Phoenix. So I ended up only needed to go to the last like 2 years of school at WCU, which was so bomb. I didn't have to go and do all 4 years again because that was crazy. So I literally have an accounting degree from Axia, the junior college. Then I have another accounting degree, bachelor's degree from University of Phoenix. Then I have another bachelor's accounting degree with a minor in finance from WCU. And thankfully, the one from WCU has been able to open doors and get me into jobs. Jobs that I will say shouldn't require a bachelor's degree. Unfortunately, that's just how our world, and at least the United States, works, where there are tons of jobs out there that are great. They're great paying, and they require a college degree. But honestly, if you have some kind of, I would say maybe some accounting classes will be very helpful and beneficial. A full degree, I don't think so, because I've never used my degree like in the setting where I've applied all of my knowledge. I've used my knowledge of how accounting works in theory, but I've never actually done any accounting. I've worked in the banking sector for the last 10 years or so. To some degree, I've worked in banking and insurance, all commercial real estate. None of the stuff I've done at my jobs could I have ever learned in college. And most of the college stuff that I learned in college, I've never used at my regular jobs, other than, like I was saying, some sort of knowledge of how accounting works. I use Excel to do a lot of math and stuff like that. But I mean, I do see where some places are coming, how they want you to show that you have some kind of, what do you say, like gumption or something, that you went and got that secondary education at a university, and it shows that you have some kind of like skin in the game or whatever you want to say. So I get where they're coming from like that, from that perspective, but honestly, all of these jobs could have been done with a junior accounting degree, if not just some kind of certification, as long as you are somewhat smart. I'm not even the brightest bulb in the pack. I will say that. I know that I'm smart, but I'm not the smartest. That's kind of the backstory, and now I'm going to go through all the numbers so you can see how trifling freaking college student loans are. I added up all my student loan stuff. So from going to Axia and University of Phoenix, like I said, and I got my degree in accounting from both, that cost me before any interest on my loans, $43,000. Mind you, they didn't give me a free laptop or computer setup I don't have room and board. I don't have a meal plan. I'm going to school online. I'm buying and making my own meals and living in my own house and going on the computer that I bought probably with my Pell Grant money. So $43,000 in 2007 is absolutely bonkers for just online school. No room and board, no meal plan, nothing else that you get in traditional school, especially in your freshman year when you're supposed to live on campus at most schools. I did an AI kind of ask just to see how much a class at University of Phoenix cost in 2007 versus how much an annual cost is at University of Phoenix for 2007 versus 2024. And this number is actually off because I went on their website and looked, but I couldn't find anything for 2007. So we're gonna go based on this AI thing, because it says in 2007 an annual tuition cost at University of Phoenix is $9,630. And get this, here's the kicker: an annual tuition cost at University of Phoenix for 2024 is $9,552. If that tells you anything about how predatory they used to be, they still are, because they're charging an arm and a leg to go to a school that doesn't give you anything. Anything. But I will say it's the convenience factor, so I'm sure that's why they charge so much, because you can go on your off time in the evenings, on the weekends, whatever. So that's $43,000 for the 4 years at University of Phoenix. And then I completed at WCU, like I was saying, I went there for 2 years. Those 2 years before any interest on my loans cost me $14,500. So all my student loans before any interest, $57,500. With interest in 2024, now I owe $84,676. So almost $30,000 worth of interest. It literally is piling up, because it used to be only $80,000 not too long ago, and now it's already $84,000. I've applied to get student loan forgiveness, but I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to get that, because technically I haven't been paying on them for 20 years. If I took these out in the end date of that, obviously I wasn't paying on them when I went to school. So then, and then when it came time to pay on them, I ended up going back to school at WCU, and I wasn't paying on them then because I was a broke single mom. And if I could afford to pay on them, I probably wouldn't have needed student loans. So I honestly didn't even start paying on them until 2014. And so it's only been 10 years of making payments on them. I have applied for forgiveness because I do feel like I got taken advantage of at University of Phoenix. That got held up in the Supreme Court 2 years ago. And so I applied for forgiveness, but my application is still pending 2 years later. So technically my student loans are like being deferred until that gets worked out. I honestly really hope that my University of Phoenix loans get forgiven, because with interest, they are around $65,000-ish. So that's a good portion of the $84,676. If they can get forgiven, I will gladly pay off my WCU loans, West Carolina student loans. I almost wish that they would just forgive all the interest on all the loans and give us like a 10-year interest-free period. Like, I feel like when you graduate college and you have student loans, you should get a mandatory interest-free period where you're able to make as much payments just on the principal. Because even if I make a payment over and above what I owe every single month, and I say my payment's like $250 and I make a payment of $350, that additional like $100 I cannot delineate to go to my principal. They apply it how they want it to be applied, and it's most likely just going to go to interest. So it's like insane to pay any more on a monthly basis than what you owe, because it's not going to be able to go to principal. There's no way to delineate that, and it's absolutely maddening. I have so many complaints about the student loan system, but I'm going to end this video here because it's already long enough and I've gone on so many side quests in this story. But I hope that gives you guys an understanding of how I got $85,000 in student loans. Okay, now I'm going to go pass out my bed because I am sicky sick, and I'm going to try to get better so we can do our account audit on Sunday. Love y'all. Bye!